Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to day 4 of the Rare Leader Challenge, unlocking your inner rare leader. I'm Tony Jalen, joined today with Danielle Jalen. Hi, Danielle. A
Hello.
long time no see. Well, did you learn ways yesterday to become more resilient about roadblocks that could trip you up? Well, be on guard for them because today we're going to be diving into the one thing you'll want to focus on first. It's time to go ahead and dial into the fourth pillar of being a rare leader: engage. So, if you've been joining us this week, there's a workbook you can go ahead and get. You can go to the Rare Leader Challenge to go ahead and print off your workbook to follow along with us. So, how many times have you ever heard of focus on one thing at a time? Raise your hand if you've ever heard that. You need to focus on one thing on a time. There's a phrase by Tony Robbins, and he says, what you focus on is where your energy goes. And like a lot of us today, there's a lot of things on in our lives. There's a lot of things demanding our time. So today the aim and objective is to work on simplifying things. Because how many of you guys would agree the more you simplify, the faster you can go a lot of the time? Raise your hand. Yeah. Hi there, Dennis.
Hi, Tony. Hi,
Hello.
Danielle.
Hello. So we're gonna go on a couple things today. First off, focusing on why you should focus on one thing at a time. Of course, this can be questions for you to be thinking about. So grab your pen, grab your paper, write this down. So let's start out first off with this. Why should you focus on one thing at a time? Dennis?
Uh, to do anything else or to do anything less would jeopardize what it is you are focusing on. So you may not always do the best job or deliver the best service.
Okay. Danielle?
I think trying to do too many things at one time can cause confusion and maybe a little bit of angst of like, I'm not getting anything done because I'm doing 50 things at one time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about you guys watching it Facebook Live? Like, why do you think it's so important to focus on one thing? Here's one of the things, and some people will disagree with this about me, but our memory sucks. At least, I mean, I sometimes don't remember what I had for breakfast on Monday. Actually, I do because I have the same thing typically every moment, or every morning. So when it comes down to the memory side of things and focusing on one thing, let me ask you guys this thing. What is one thing that you want to engage in, work on hard to strengthen, overcome in the next 30 days? What is one thing? And we're going to go through somewhat of an exercise in regards to this for everyone here. What's one specific thing, big or small, that you want to go all in on over the next 30 days?
Create content for my video blog
Okay.
every
Okay.
single day, every single freaking day.
All right. So you guys heard it here. Dennis is going to create video content each and every day.
Every single day.
Every day. Danielle?
I will be working out on a consistent schedule of 5 days a week over the next 30 days.
All right. And Tony, oh gosh, now my complex mind is coming because I got a few things, but the one thing I'm going to share with you all, I'm going to join Dennis. One video a day. One video a day. I'll go ahead and create one video a day to share because we all have things to share. So we all dialed into your one thing you're going to focus on over the next 30 days. And yesterday we talked about some of the obstacles that can happen. Well, here's another reason why you want to focus on one thing. It keeps fear from destroying your action.
It keeps what from destroying my action?
Fear.
Fear? Like fear the deer?
Fear the deer, right? Because I mean, let me
Wow.
think about it. Think about that. Is fear a constant battle for a lot of people? Like literally this morning we had a question of what is my worst fear and how does it limit my possibilities in life? And
What's
here's my
that, what's that got to do with focusing on one thing at a time?
because we're talking about right now of why do you want to focus on one thing at a time? And if you focus on one thing at a time, you don't have so many things that you're focusing on.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because having too many goals means that you'll get a small slice of fear of which was each one of like which one I gotta do today, which one I gotta do today.
Oh, but rare leaders are fearless people.
This is true. This is
I,
true.
I want to emphasize a point there that rare leaders are fearless people because what they do rarely, but they
Mhm.
do it is the point. When other people are afraid to step out or step up, rare leaders are fearless. Now they're not completely absent of fear, and on that
Right.
basis, I will you know con- convey to you my support of discussing fear for the next couple of minutes. But I think, for me, that jump from single focus, from multi-focus to fear was a big leap. And I just wanted to clarify that,
No,
not just for the people that are watching us, but for,
for
me.
you. No, and here's the thing. What I've learned is that when I have too many things to do, I'm like I get and sometimes feel like, oh, I gotta do this. Oh, I gotta do that. I don't have the time to do this. And by just focusing on like the simple thing that like Daniil talked about working out, you and I talked about video, I find, or let me ask you guys this question: by focusing on one thing, do you think that answers are much less challenging to find versus having so many things to focus on?
I'm going to yield to Daniil first because I have a definitive management method to that answer.
So by focusing on too many things at once, can you ask the question again?
All right. The question is, by simplifying, by focusing on just one thing, do you think that answers are much less challenging to find?
Yes. Mainly because what you focus on, you kind of alluded to it at the beginning, where we focus our energy is where we focus what happens. And I really do feel that because I feel like if I'm focusing on like, oh my gosh, I'm being so lazy right now. Oh my gosh, I'm being so lazy right now. That's where my energy and focus and answers to everything are coming from. If I'm focusing on like, oh, I'm so excited to work out right now. I'm going to feel so good when this is done. The time and the little things that try to stop me are less, and the answers to it becoming easier to do each day then come to the forefront.
That's true. Dennis?
Well, I have a number of rules of thumb that I've imposed on those who work closely with me. I think that's a fairly objective way of saying it. One is that I don't like to spend more than 20 minutes considering something, because if it takes more than 20 minutes, it's probably beyond the scope of getting it done in a day anyhow. But the idea of working on multiple things, I might be focusing on one thing at a time, but I tell my staff to really only schedule half their day around what it is they're going to work on, and the other half will take care of itself. But I also insist that they do work, especially the technical people, the developers, have 2 or 3 projects that are going at a time and do not spend the entire day on one. And the reason for that is you will experience creative thoughts, just inspirational ideas as you're working on other things.
There's
Okay.
truth to that.
Yeah, I explained it this morning when I was sitting in the dental chair. I've got to have the tooth that's really bad that's got to come out. And I said, show me the x-ray, and the filling that's in that tooth is at the base, right above the root, but there was, below the superstructure of the tooth. And that's a tooth they have to take out. In fact, it broke. And I said, look at that. That's really unusual. I didn't see that before. And they said, well, that's the way they did that one, and I don't know why they did it. I said, that's like fixing the foundation of a home or repairing your basement and structuring it up. And it's going to bend the top and it's going to crack the walls and the ceiling and stuff like that, even though you're working below the bottom. that analogy is one analogy from one industry applied to another. And it actually was valid because I discussed it with the doctor. And he said, no, that's a very valid point. If you do something at the bottom, it's going to affect stuff at the top. Well, that's why I think being able to work on multiple projects in a day is valuable. It takes away that idea of sitting at a slot machine and keep pulling that one arm all the time, hoping that it's going to hit all the time, all the time, all the time. It forces you to get out of the rut, think about things a little bit differently, which might inspire you with a completely new solution to the thing you were first working on. So I'm not saying that it's multitasking or multifocal. I'm simply saying you're still focused on one thing at a time,
Right.
but maybe you shouldn't spend all day on one thing.
Right.
Right.
And you got to have that break. I mean, there's a book called The Way We're Working Isn't Working. The power, and he also wrote the book, The Power of Full Engagement.
Oh,
I think one of the reasons why we're talking about this as the Rare Leader, the 5-day challenge, is that to speak to Bruce Lee, he had a quote. He said, "I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times."
oh, that's an amazing point, isn't it? Wax on, wax off. Same thing, Karate Kid. Do the same moves over and over again, perfect them to absolute speed and efficient, top-notch performance.
And it goes back to, there's a book called Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. And it talks about the 10,000 hour rule. And that mastery and success comes from pursuing one thing and doing that one thing for years.
That's what makes me an expert at eating.
Right. So let me ask you this question, and we're exploring reasons why it's important to choose one goal to go after. I mean, there's more things that you're going to have to go and pursue, or you're doing our lives, because it is what it is. But what would you say were some other reasons why it's so important to focus on choosing a goal of one thing to go after? Does it help make conversations simpler? Do you think?
Based on a single what?
Like if you're focused on one goal.
Oh, well, I don't know if that's a hypothetical because it's not practical. I don't think anybody truly excludes everything else to just focus on one goal. Maybe an objective for that particular moment in time. But yeah, I think it allows you to be much clearer in what you're saying. Like these sessions that we're doing on these half-hour sessions this week, we have a very specific agenda. We have a number of points we're going to make. I mean, we practice these things for 18 hours before we actually present this 30 minutes of excitement to your audience.
Mm-hmm.
That only comes because we know what we want to accomplish, and that is an imparting of knowledge is going to make rare leaders better, right? And give them tools and skills that are going to make them better leaders and more confident in their leadership abilities. So yeah, I think when you focus, clarity, emphasis, that's all beneficial.
So here's some questions in terms of that you can use in asking yourself whether or not you're committed to this one thing or not. Number one, can you prioritize it? What you said, Dennis, in terms of your video, and those of you guys are watching, you thought about, okay, what's that one goal you want to go ahead and go all in on the month of March on? But is that something that you can prioritize? Doing a video once a day.
It may not be pretty, but it will be done.
All right. Danielle, how about you?
Yes, I think by being able to look at that one thing and looking at it as something to do, really asking yourself, am I willing to do this?
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not, then it's really not a priority.
100%.
So it really has to be something that is driving you. Like, what is the end purpose of this? And am I willing to do the work to get to that? And if I'm not, then it's okay. It's okay to walk away. It's okay to realize that it's just not a priority at this time. It may be at another time.
It's like the phrase, and when someone says to me, I can't do something, like, if you guys know me, those of you guys are watching as well, saying I can't is like a swear word to me. Like, it's like you just dropped the F-bomb on me like 15 times. And instead of saying you can't, just say, I'm just not willing. And that's okay. I know it's a harder thing, pill to swallow, maybe. So these items, which everyone's sharing, and you can post it in the Facebook group as well, are you willing to devote a slot in your calendar to schedule it? So Dennis?
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, you're sounding like my sister a year ago who told me that it's very important to keep appointments with yourself. And I didn't realize what she meant with that until she said you literally set appointments with yourself.
Mhm.
That's the same thing here. We have to put it in the calendar. We have to do so at the exclusion of other activities. Yes, I agree.
Okay. So here's my next question in terms of testing your one thing. And there's a book on it too. Last name is Keller. Can't remember his first name. He wrote a book called The One Thing too. But can you, what can you start small today? What's one small step can you take today to move towards that goal?
Well, for me, I tend to like to work out earlier in the morning. So making sure my alarm clock is set for the next day to be able to get up to do that. And then I also make a checklist. I'm very big at visual person. So like having a checklist of like what my workout is for that day to be able to check that off.
Okay. Dennis, how can you start small in terms of making your video?
Well, having made a lot of them in the past, but just not making them daily, it's going to have to fold into my normal routine. I can't just say, okay, I'm going to do this at 9 o'clock Monday and 10:30 on Tuesday, bouncing around like they are client appointments. I'm going to have to say, I'm going to do this every morning at 5:30 a.m. or 6,
Okay.
and stick to that.
I like, and the thing is too, is like, well, a lot of things, they don't have to be perfect. A lot of time, I don't know about you guys, but raise your hand if you get ever caught in the trap of it has to be perfect before you get going on. Yeah,
Right? That's what I meant earlier. It may not be pretty.
yeah. And you got to be okay with that. When you're going all in on a goal and want to achieve something, you got to be okay. It's not gonna be pretty every day.
Yeah.
So here's the next question to test. This is a test question. Um, can you stay consistent with that activity?
It has to be. It has to be. There isn't a person out there who's told me anything opposite to the fact that consistency is the linchpin. Even if it isn't pretty, it's consistent.
Yeah.
And that was made no more apparent than by a 14-year-old child that I think you know, who has been very consistent in delivering his videos week after week after he went back to school, right? He knew he couldn't do it every day, and he did it every day during the summer last year, but then he decided, I'm going to do this every single week, and he makes that effort. He's consistent, and he has built up his following, and that's a lesson for all of us. You know, out of the mouths of babes comes the truth. You know, consistency is not an option.
Mhm.
Not an option if you really want to build on it.
Right. And that's why I asked this question is, you know, can you and are you, like Danielle was saying, are willing to be consistent to, like last year we talked about the one word in one previous Facebook lives. My word was consistency. And it took a life of its own. So here's a little idea that you can do is put on your phone's screen this question. Did you do your one thing today? That's a little reminder. Did you do your one thing? Now, here's a little icing on the cake question. And for those of you guys who are watching Facebook Live, what right now we're talking about is, determining like one thing to really focus on, a goal to focus on in the month of March. It doesn't have to be something astronomical. It can be something small that if you do it, it's going to move the needle for you in your life. So your one thing, Dennis, we're having a conversation here, folks. Is it important to you enough that you want to say no to other things that you could do?
That's the answer to that is it's a short answer, but it's a big effort. And that is if a person says that they need my help.
Mm.
And they may or may not be clients, they may or may not even be friends. It might be an acquaintance that I know through somebody else. I just went through this the last month with a 75-year-old or 73-year-old woman whose husband passed away last year. She's been living in a rental home that the owner has given her an option to buy. Well, she didn't even know where to start on submitting an offer and things like that. Well, we got that. She got her down payment and she's jumping up and down with joy, saying that she literally said last week that she wouldn't have owned this home or gotten this home, which she closes on later this month, without my involvement. You know, that to me is reward. That to me is great.
Right.
And I'll take that over profit any day. And that means what? That means that I'm willing to put business and other things aside when somebody's in need.
Well, and let me give you further context on this is that, and I have this written down. Saying no means ignoring all the things you could do and doing what you should do.
Yeah.
It is recognizing that not all things matter equally, but your one thing matters the most. Because time is finite, right? You can make more money, you can go and build another house, you can get another like sushi meal, but that time you're not going to get back. So, is this something that you want to learn to say no to those other things so that way you don't get away from doing this one thing, this one goal? These are all test questions, folks. These are all test questions to
And my
see.
head hurts.
I want you guys to think because it's true. You know, I'm gonna give you guys a quick example. I can't remember if I shared this on the story yesterday or not. But so we do a weekly review as a family. And let me know right now if I already told the story to Neil and Dennis. But Ezekiel had this goal to get up in the morning and run a mile or do this exercise for 10 minutes. And for a couple of weeks, he just wasn't getting it done. And we were talking about, okay, what's preventing you guys from getting these things done? So on Sunday, when we did our weekly review, he said it again, but then he put a little caveat on it. If I don't do it, I don't get to play Xbox or PlayStation or anything like that. And I'm like, what made you say that? He goes, because the way I was approaching it wasn't working. So those are 4 questions to test. Are you willing to prioritize it? What can you start small with today? We talked about this already this week. Hesitation is worse than procrastination. Is this something you're willing to stay consistent on? You know, because consistency is the key to any sustainable change over time. Right? It's sort of like if I want to go ahead, I say this, if I want to go ahead and release weight, I'm not going to go ahead and release weight like, you know, the extra COVID-19 pounds. See, folks, you all think COVID-19 actually stands for like a strain of coronavirus. It stands for 19 pounds that I gained in the last year.
It is. It's a diet program.
It's a diet program. But, you know, you just didn't gain that weight off of one pass through the drive-through. And you're not going to release that weight after just one time in the gym. So let's be realistic, but are you willing to stay consistent? And finally, are you willing to say no? Because everything wants our time, but are you willing to say no? That's your test question to see if you're really committed to this or not. So as we finish up here, we're actually finishing up earlier today. I'd love for you guys who are watching the Facebook Live, you know, to share your one thing, your one goal, and it could be simple. It could be, you know, I'm going to go ahead and not be on social media as much anymore. I'm going to reduce my social media to an hour a day. Tell you guys a funny story. So there was someone I knew that was on social media a lot, a lot, and actually would emotionally hijack him. So he made a bet with himself that if he went on social media anytime within that 30-day mark, he'd have to donate money to a cause that he does not support. Talk about a little extra motivation. So as we reflect on this, tomorrow we're going to really create that personal action plan. So now you decide on what you're going to do. And tomorrow we're going to focus on a plan that's attainable, not frustrating or unrealistic. We're going to walk through a process of how to really break it down into steps to take and then have an end date for each step. And I encourage you, share it in the Rare Leader community here. Share this with other people. We talked about this earlier in this week, that accountability is the glue to what we do. Because if you don't tell anyone else about it, sometimes the only person you got to be accountable to is yourself, and sometimes that just doesn't work. But let's go around the horn real quick and share some of your thoughts, Daniil and Dennis, on things you've learned about focusing more on one thing versus focusing on a million things. Any other parting words of encouragement you want to offer everyone here in the community? Daniil, I'll have you start first.
I think the big thing about focusing on one thing is just being able to be clear on where you're going, to eliminate distractions of other things. And I appreciate Dennis's comment about when you are working on one thing, it may trigger things for other things that you're focusing on and need help with. So to continue just to like realize, like, am I willing to do this one thing to help me move forward, which may spark and raise the tide for all the other things that you have going on too.
I like it. I like it. It's been exciting next 27 days. Dennis?
Focus, folks, focus, and listen to what other people are asking you to do.
What do you mean by that there, Dennis?
Well, that's a very interesting point. Again, for me, I like to hear what other people have to say, and hearing what they have to say, that's kind of our marching orders for the day, isn't it?
Yeah.
It gives us that opportunity to really meet the needs, not only of ourselves as leaders, but of others whom we serve.
Awesome. Well, I will piggyback on that and share this final thought with you all. Like Daniil and Dennis says about focus. If you want to reach a goal so bad, the truth that matters, you're going to have to make sacrifices along the way. Just don't give up. You can only be great at one thing you're willing to sacrifice for. So stay focused, stay dialed in, reach out to us if you need some help. We're here for you. This is a community to connect, collaborate, and contribute with one another. Until then, rise up, onward and upward, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.